Here, you can get a Cadillac top-notch premium private healthcare plan for a 100 euros a month.
Okay, so today I'm with my new friend Jules de Mello, right? De Mello?
Yes, de Mello. It's
De
a Portuguese
Mello.
surname. It
It is a
is.
Portuguese name.
It is.
I love. What's the meaning of that?
Oh,
Oh,
it's just a family name.
the
So
family name.
anytime I'm told by my Portuguese language instructor that if you have the de in front of your last name, Mello, the name is actually Mello.
Yeah.
It's very posh. It means you're of one of these original families.
Oh wow.
And I
I
said,
love it.
well, I hope I can find those relatives.
You
And
have one of the coolest names, Jules de Mello. I love it. It's
yes,
awesome. Well, Jules, thanks for doing the podcast. You live in just outside of Lisbon. To me, you're living in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Tell us a little bit of backstory about where you're from, and how you landed in Portugal.
sure. I was born in Ohio, so I grew up in the Midwest. I worked in a career in the government that had me move a lot. Um, so I moved and lived overseas and traveled and worked overseas quite a bit. Um, and I've always had a love for travel. And I did an exchange student year abroad in high school, and then I did a study abroad semester in college. Not in Portugal or any Portuguese speaking country, but in Spanish speaking countries. So I do speak Spanish fluently. But when I lived in Spain, I always wanted to go to Portugal because I knew my last name was of Portuguese origins. But I didn't have any money in college to do that at the end of my semester, so I had to go home. I couldn't take that gap year or do any of the traveling abroad. So I always wanted to come back. And in 2018, a friend and I said, hey, we're going to go visit this friend of ours who lives in Madrid. But since we're in Madrid, let's go to Portugal. And so we did. We planned a trip for 10 days in Portugal. We flew into Lisbon, rented a car, and we basically covered the entire southern half of Portugal from Lisbon all the way inland to Évora, well, and to the Spanish border east of Évora, and then south of there, all along the southwest coast and the southern Algarve coast, over to Faro, which is another city that has an airport.
Yeah.
And we both said when we arrived at our last location in the Setubal Peninsula, which is where I live now, we arrived in Sesimbra, a small fishing village. We said this we could retire here, and so I had that in the back of my mind. And then COVID happened, and retirement wasn't imminent yet, and I couldn't travel. And so when it finally came time, I said, I'm going back. And so I came back to Scout last year in October, trying to find an apartment and see where I wanted to live. Of course, I went to Lisbon. I thought big city, that's me. I'm a city girl. I like lots of activities. And I found immediately that I was outpriced in Lisbon for rent. And then I had a friend that I met online through other friends who was living in Setubal, the actual city. There's a municipality called Setubal, and then a province or a peninsula called Setubal, just southwest of Lisbon.
Hmm.
And she said, you should come down here and visit me in Setubal and see what you think. And the moment I arrived in Setubal City, I immediately felt the vibe. And the vibe was, this place is going to explode. It's experiencing a renaissance. It's up and coming. It's hip. It's artsy. It's got lots of music and culture. And I just knew it was the right fit.
Wow.
Living the
So,
dream.
so do you have a retirement visa now?
I do. It's called the D7.
Okay.
Um, Now, you don't have to be retired to apply for the D7, but it's definitely intended for and designed for retirees
Okay.
who have, or people who have passive income that's regular and fixed.
Okay.
So you could, and I know many people have cobbled together their investment portfolios, their rental properties, way more sophisticated financial portfolios than mine. I just have a pension.
Yeah.
And they've been able to get the D7, but it was implemented and designed for people exactly like me. And I knew I would be approved because they know that I'm going to get a check every month from the US government. And so they're not worried about, like, if the housing market falls out, what happens to you and all your real estate investments and your rental properties. So
Sure.
it's called the D7.
What are the requirements to get the D7? Is there a minimum amount that you have to show per month?
There is. So you have to show, and it sounds minuscule to people from the US, but I mean, you still have to put it together in a bank account in Portugal. So it's a lot of money outlay up front for somebody retired, not working. You have to show that you have enough income uh, as the average Portuguese monthly salary. And because the first visa they give you, the D7, is for 2 years, you need to be able to show in your Portuguese bank account that you have that money to cover those 2 years if, for example, something happens and you don't get your pension check or your Social Security or your
Yeah.
rental income. So and the average Portuguese monthly salary, I think it just went up, is just under about €1,000, like 900 and something euros a month.
Okay.
So that times 24 months has to be in a bank account that you open in Portugal and have in there when you actually show up for your interview to get the visa.
So retirees that are considering retiring in Portugal, just for this particular visa, they need to show that they have an income of about 1,000 a month, a
They
regular
do.
income. Okay.
They
Okay.
do. And then in the bank account, they have to have that little stockpile, that little pile that shows that no matter what happens, I can pay for my 2 years of my initial D7. So the
Okay.
initial D7 is 2 years, and then you can try to renew it for an additional 3 years, that
Okay.
same D7. And the renewals happen online once you're here. They're still painful. There's still a lot of bureaucratic involvement in getting that renewal. It doesn't, the online system doesn't work as efficiently or as easily as it might in other places. But that's how you renew online, and it's pretty pro forma. Once you're here for 2 years, the renewal is very pro forma. You're going to get the renewal, and the
Okay.
goal is after 5 years of living in Portugal under the D7 visa, I can apply to become a dual citizen.
Oh,
So I
nice.
can, so I can apply for what is essentially an EU passport and still keep my US passport. So that dual citizenship that allows people to be able to move to other European Union countries with less barriers and restrictions.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that is the draw for many people moving to Portugal, is that ability to get that EU passport.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's great info. Very cool. Wow. That would be awesome, man, to have that dual citizenship. So let's talk about, there's like, I'm looking on certain lists where it says that your income isn't taxed in Portugal. And you mentioned something earlier about the non-habitual residence or tax NHR system. What
Yeah.
so what is that all about?
So as a D7 visa holder here, and I'm on a pension, I am taxed under the NHR, the non-habitual resident scheme, at a flat rate of 10% on my pension income or whatever income I have. And it's good for 10 years. You have to apply for it. It isn't automatic. But it's fairly
So
easy
they're
to get through.
so they're taxing your income per month. 10%?
No, it's just when you fill out, you have to file a Portuguese tax return annually.
I
So
see.
it's a 10% flat tax on your total annual income.
Okay, so what I'm reading sounds like that's inaccurate
It
because it's
isn't.
saying that okay, so you do have to pay some money on the income that you make there or that you have.
You do, even if the source of that income is in the US,
I see.
or is outside of Portugal. So
Mm,
the D7 visa is designed for people who have income, from outside of Portugal that aren't working here in Portugal, and who are not currently Portuguese citizens. They haven't lived here in the past 5 years. So
mhm.
those are the people who are eligible to apply for that visa. But yes, all my income that I am earning from my pension and or Social Security will be taxed at a flat rate of 10% annually when I file my Portuguese tax return. Now, I don't know Portuguese tax law, so I'm going to hire a local, and maybe they have deductions, and maybe there's things that you get to take deductions on. I'm not certain about that, but
Mhm.
I do know that that's the scheme, and that's a law they passed to encourage people to migrate here on that visa, because otherwise their tax rates are very, very high.
Okay. Okay, so once you apply for this NHR program, it's only 10%, but if you don't apply to that, they're going to be significantly higher.
Yeah, it could be up to 48% on your income,
Oh,
depending
wow.
how much you
Okay.
earn each year.
I see. So that's the benefit of Portugal. Okay, so you're okay. Okay, got it. All right, great. Well, thanks for that clarification. So, finding a flat, where do people that want to move to Portugal, what resources do you utilize to identify flats, and what are the going rates?
So one of the major online resources for available rentals is a website called Idealista,
Yep.
like Idealista. There are others. You can look specifically on realtor websites like Keller Williams, Century 21, Remax, because they all exist here as well.
Okay.
Um, but Idealista is very user friendly. You can put in your max rent of minimum space requirements, how many bathrooms, whether you want air conditioning, parking, renovated, good condition, needs work. You can specify in all the filters and create searches so that it updates you all the time when there's a new listing that meets your criteria. Typically, most of the people who migrate here end up using a realtor,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Okay.
use a realtor to help you with the leasing part of it, to make sure that it complies with Portuguese law, and to make sure that it is registered with the Department of Finances, the IRS of Portugal, because if not, they will deny your visa application. So when you apply for your visa, the D7 I applied for in Washington, D.C. in person, this is a downside to this migration. You have to already have a 12-month signed lease
Okay.
that is registered with the Department of Finances in Portugal. So when you go to that interview, you can show that. So you get a realtor here to help you navigate that, because most of the realtors have an attorney they use to make sure that it's not somebody trying to sublease a place that they have no legal authority to sublease, or that they are registering the lease with finances.
Mm-hmm.
And they can check on that because they have the ability to look into those things.
Okay. So what are the going rates going for? And you're in Setubal, you said?
Setubal. And a lot of people who are outpriced in Lisbon are moving to this region, one, because of the beaches and the hiking and the beautiful fresh air, and two, because the rents and housing prices are much lower than Lisbon. When I was looking in Lisbon, and this was last year in October, a one-bedroom, unfurnished, with no amenities. That means no heat, no air conditioning, no parking space, older property, and no elevator. You're walking up maybe 4 flights of stairs. You could get that for about €1,000 a month,
Okay.
maybe
Wow.
1,100 euros. Here in Setubal, that same apartment would have been about 500 euros, 600 euros.
Okay.
Now in Lisbon, you're talking 1900 euros a month for a one bedroom that's not uh, really far out from the city, that has air conditioning and heat, and an elevator if it's a tall, high rise that is not a walk up. So prices have doubled easily just in the past year, and they have here in Setubal as well. There are people who I live here with whose rents are much less than mine, but they don't have air conditioning and heat, and they don't have an elevator, and they don't have a parking space. So my
Mhm.
deal breakers were air conditioning, heat. Here in Portugal, air conditioning and heat is not central. There is no central heating or air conditioning. It is
Okay.
a mini split on your wall that performs three functions:
Yeah,
dehumidifier, air conditioning, and heat.
sure.
So that was my prerequisite, is that I have that, because I knew how hot it gets in the summer and how cold it gets in the winter and how humid the winters are. And
Hmm.
two, I wanted a parking space because I knew I was probably going to get a used car.
Hmm.
Um, and three, I wanted an elevator if it's a high rise, which many buildings in the cities are. There aren't a lot of standalone homes in cities. You have to move way out to get suburb like homes, villas,
Hmm.
or standalones. And families do that, but people moving here by themselves typically get an apartment.
Hmm.
So the range can be from as low as probably 600 euros a month. You could probably get a studio for a little less. Um, Maybe not in Lisbon, but here in Setúbal, up to, I would say here, 1900 euros a month
Okay.
for a one bedroom, but that's going to be like a really, really luxury, furnished with high end, and maybe it's modern, that has very modern decor or design, or was newly built.
Hmm. Okay. So like something it looks like you got a beautiful place. I love the
Oh, I did.
I mean, what is this something comfortable? Is that a one bedroom, two bedroom?
So I got a two bedroom because I
Okay.
wanted to be able to host family and friends. And I have a two bedroom, two bath. That was a bonus that I got two bath.
Sure.
I have a parking garage. Like, my deal was a dedicated parking space. It didn't have to be a garage, but I have a garage space. I have a
Mhm.
storage unit, a dry storage unit in my building just for me, that's quite large. Um, and my space is 137 square meters. So what, 1,400 square feet?
Good size.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And mine has a modern design, so it's an open living room dining concept, and the kitchen is not galley. It isn't open to the dining room and living, but it's not galley. It's a cook's kitchen. I was looking for that because I like to cook, but it has a walk-in pantry. I mean, I
Mhm.
I, I hit the lottery.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm up on a hill looking at the water every day on my
Wow.
balcony that is the entire width of my apartment, uh, from one end to the other. And what I pay here is 1,500 euros a month,
Wow.
which for Setúbal is pricey, but for what I got and for the landlords I have, um, it's worth every single penny to me.
Sure.
And when I look at what I paid living in Philadelphia, living in Baltimore, living in DC, living in LA, I always have lived in cities throughout my career. I've paid more than this. This is affordable. Um, Now, you always have to keep in mind that the exchange rate between dollars and euros is not 1 to 1. It
Hmm.
was for a few nanoseconds or a month.
Right. Yeah.
So if that changes drastically, then it could be tight. I
Sure.
mean, I had to include that in my budget. What if this exchange rate changes against me? And I went by you don't want to spend more than half your income on housing, because, I mean, the point of moving here is to have access to other parts of Europe, and less expensive travel by train and by very economical plane fares. It's just cheaper if you live in Europe to travel in Europe than have to come across from the US every time.
Sure.
That's a very expensive flight.
So in Setubal, you said these one bedrooms can start out at about 600 euros. Are those pretty nice, comfortable places for that?
I mean, yes. I mean, it depends what you're looking for. Like, I have a friend who lives in a 3 bedroom and it's a walk up, but only one floor up, second
Mm-hmm.
floor. And she's only paying 750 euros for her place. And she doesn't have AC, but she has fans and she has space heaters as needed. She has a great cross breeze. Hers is the more traditional Portuguese apartment, so very compartmentalized, like every room can be shut off from the rest, and that's designed so that you don't have to try to heat the entire place. You can put the space heater in your bedroom and just heat that space, while you're sleeping.
Sure.
Um, and hers is a very nice place. And those apartments typically don't come, and that's traditional here, they don't come with a dishwasher or a refrigerator,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes don't come with the stove. So you
Okay.
do have to supply appliances in many traditional Portuguese apartments. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can get them much cheaper that they don't come with, fully equipped or with all the amenities that maybe someone might be expecting like they would have in the US.
I see. Okay. And do they include the utilities in a lot of these leases or?
Sometimes they do
Okay.
include water because water's fairly inexpensive. Sometimes they include gas because the only gas would be like your gas water heater.
Mhm.
And they're all tankless here, all of them.
Okay.
Um,
Are your utilities included?
uh, no, mine are not. So I
Okay.
pay water, gas, and electric.
So if you broke down what you pay per month with water, gas, electric, even in maybe Wi-Fi and cell, what would that be if you broke it all down?
It ends up about 1,700 a month.
Okay. So I'm talking, so utilities are 1,700?
No, 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 no. I mean, that's rent plus utilities.
So you're
So
talking like water, gas, electric, and Wi-Fi, cell phone, it's an additional 200 a month?
that's on in the hottest day of the summer, right? When I'm running the AC, and I did this summer, probably we had a week of over 100-degree weather, and we had another week where it was in the upper 90s. And
Okay.
um so the highest electric bill I had, I think, was around 100 euros. Uh the bundles here for cell phone, Wi-Fi, all that stuff are like $55 for,
Okay.
all the bells and whistles. Um, that's everything together. Water and gas are pennies, like a few euros. I mean, they're nothing. So it is the electrical and then your Wi-Fi and cell phone uh, and cable.
So
Because
the high months you're saying would be 200 a month.
a really high month would be
Okay.
100 in
So
utility
so I'm
for a
guessing,
2 bedroom, 2 bath apartment that's 1,400 square feet.
so maybe it would be what, 100, 150 for most people per month if you did an average, broke it down?
Yeah, I think it's probably under 100 for most people. And it depends on your heat tolerance. Like, this is my first year here, so probably by next year, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be used to the fluctuations in temperature and
Yeah.
not have to use heat or air conditioning very often.
Okay. All right, cool. So everybody needs to shop for groceries. What can you get by on per month on groceries?
Oh, very little. Groceries are the one thing here that are way less than in
Okay.
the US. Fresh produce, fresh fruits, fresh bread every day, fresh meat, fresh fish. The markets, the fresh markets, even the grocery stores where you can get packaged things. The price of food, according to the Portuguese, has gone way up. but
Sure.
compared to our food, I mean, you can get a lot. I'd say and I cook a lot. I shop and cook a lot at home. And I would say if I spend €100 a month on groceries, that's unusual. I mean, and I'm cooking every day.
Mhm. All right, great. So then now let's get into the fun stuff. Like, what do you do for fun there and entertainment? So like
So,
what do you budget for entertainment? And this helps people understand what it costs if you go out to eat a few times, if you go do some other things, movies, theater.
I mean, going out to eat here is like at a 3, 4 star, 5 star restaurant is still half the price or less than what you would pay in the US for
Mm-hmm.
the same caliber quality of service and food. But I can eat out every day, once a day, sometimes twice for under €20 and eat very, very, very well. So
Mm-hmm.
the main meal here that people eat out is lunch. And they usually get the plate of the day, and it includes the bread, the olives, the butter. Your main dish, which here in Setubal, because it's the fishing capital of Portugal, is grilled fish. You can choose from many different kinds, but it's often grilled fish with potatoes, with salad, and then dessert and coffee, plus a glass of wine are all included for like 10, €11. Wine is inexpensive here. Like wine is cheaper than water. I tell everybody it's
Yeah.
cheaper than bottled water.
Mm-hmm.
So order wine. You
Mm-hmm.
can get great wines here for €3. You can get fantastic wines for €6, and you can get wines that would cost you $100 in the US for €10. So it really is the food and beverage part of the entertainment aspect is very inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for fun, we have so many things to do. I mean, there's music everywhere, festivals everywhere. Those are all free. Cultural festivals, music festivals, food festivals. The cities sponsor them, the provinces sponsor them. They're going on every weekend, sometimes every day during the summer season. So I can't even keep up with the number of events there are. But
Yeah.
just in my community alone, we have a very, very cohesive immigrant community, not just from the US, but Canadians, Belgians, French, Germans, Indians, Chinese, um, what other countries? Polish. I mean, we have people from every country. And our thing in common is that we speak English as our primary language with each other, but that
Mm-hmm.
might not be the first language of each individual.
Sure.
And we have walking groups, we have sketching groups, we have live music jam groups, we have dog walking groups, we have hiking groups, we have yoga groups. Um, we have a backgammon group that gets together. We have a poker group that gets together once a month. We share all of our recipes, and we do a lot of cooking classes with each other and with other people. It's very rich in terms of things to do. I have so much to do, I can't even keep up with it all. And that's just here in Setúbal and this region. But I'm, 35 minutes from Lisbon by train or bus, or I can do a train ferry um, easily and in
Mm-hmm.
under an hour or around an hour. Um,
Nice.
and so if I want to go to cultural events or meetups or anything up there, it's very, very easy to get there
Mm-hmm.
and back.
Mm-hmm.
So transportation's super easy. Here, the bus system is fantastic. There's also Uber and Bolt. Like Bolt is like the local Lyft. So
Mm-hmm.
between Uber and Bolt, you just go back and forth and toggle and see who's offering the best rate. Um, and to go anywhere here in Setúbal, in this city, one side to the other, north side to the water, €3. It's very inexpensive. So even if you don't want to take the bus or you don't want to walk, but I walk almost everywhere. Like people come here and because they don't want to have a car. A lot of people move to Europe so they don't have to have a car anymore.
Yeah.
And you can do it here easily. Now I have a dog and I moved here with my dog. So for me, it's different. So I want a car because I want my dog to go with me. Dogs are allowed on trains here and they're allowed on metros, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of rules about that. They're not allowed on buses. And so it makes it more challenging. If it's a very small dog that can fit in a tiny little carrier that you can put on your shoulder, you can probably get away with a dog on any public transit. But my dog's medium, so she can't fit in a carrier that I can carry
Hmm.
easily. So so for me, a car is a requirement.
Sure.
Um, because I want to travel all over and I want to bring my dog.
Yeah.
And we can't fly because she's too big to fit in the plane with me.
I see.
And that was stressful getting her over here from the US
Mm.
underneath the plane. I mean, that was probably the most stressful aspect of the entire move.
Yeah.
So transportation is super easy here if you don't have a pet that you want to take with you places, a dog. Um, it's cheap. If you're over 65, you can get this Navigante card for all transit in the greater Lisbon, Setubal area, whether it's ferries, buses, trains, metros, for €20 a month. So that's the magic age here, 65, for that very, very economical public transport pass. Um, for everybody else, it's €40 a month.
Hmm.
So if you don't use public transit all the time, it may be better to just get a card and just top it up as needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Well, let's
and
let
public
me
transit's good here. It's really good.
yeah, it sounds like it. So let's back up. So if you had to put in first the museums that they have in Portugal, are some of those free?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So if you had to
Majority of
put
them
an
are free. Yes.
okay, if you had to put a number on your budget for entertainment, with going including going out, restaurants,
Yep.
um, what do you think that would be per month?
Well, I'm an extrovert and very social, so I like to go
Okay.
out. If you're
Okay.
a super social, extroverted person who loves trying new restaurants and is always, showing up for all the events, probably €200 a month. I budget for that.
Okay. Okay. And I'm guessing people could probably get away on 100.
Oh, a lot less. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the outlier in that, than that I tend to go to all the events. And most of the events I'm talking about, these groups that get together to do things are free. And if you go get a coffee and a little sandwich, a little croissant, what's the equivalent of like a little breakfast item here? I mean, you're paying like €2 for that, for
Yeah.
coffee and a breakfast.
Yeah.
It's very inexpensive.
Well, what's really also desirable that you pointed out that a lot of people look for is a community where they can communicate with, because you're going overseas. There's a completely different language, completely different culture. If there aren't others that you can connect with, and you do not know how to speak Portuguese, that could be very, very isolating. So it
It
sounds
can.
like your city, Setubal, has a really great community of expats from everywhere
It does.
speaking English. So that is really cool.
It does. To me, and so there's all these Facebook groups that if people are interested in looking at Portugal as a potential retirement destination, every region of Portugal, the Algarve, Porto, Lisbon, Setúbal, has a Facebook group that are expats in Setúbal or expats in the Algarve or expats in Porto. Our Facebook group here is our Setúbal community, OSC.
So let's go over healthcare.
Yes,
Everybody who's interested in moving to a different country, they're curious about the healthcare system
yes.
and how much it costs.
So it depends. That's the answer for every question, is it depends.
Sure.
I've learned in life. But a lot of people come here who, I mean, cannot afford the US healthcare system. They're being crushed by the US healthcare system. Here, healthcare, it is socialized medicine. It is. Healthcare is provided, and emergency healthcare is provided for everybody, free of charge. Um, Elective healthcare, what is considered elective surgeries or specialties. If you need a knee replacement, it's like Canada. You might be waiting quite a while for that. But if you have a heart attack, you go to the hospital, you will not be crushed with a bill after that. You will be cared for, you will be healed, you won't have to pay for that.
I see.
So they have a two-tier system, similar to many other countries with socialized medicine. So there's the private healthcare system and the public. A lot of immigrants are hoping to get on the public system. When you first come under my visa scheme, the D7, you have to have a private healthcare plan in Portugal for your meeting here with the immigration authorities. When you meet with them in person, once you arrive in country. So some people get the cheapest thing they can get, so they can show that, and then they cancel it after they get approved to live here.
Sure.
And I mean, it's allowed. Nobody says they have to keep that. You
Right.
just have to show it when you have your meeting with the immigration authorities. But a lot of people keep the private plan so that they can access care for knee replacements, hip replacements, shoulder surgery, those things that would be considered elective or specialty that you might have to wait 2 to 3 years on a list to
Mm-hmm.
get into the public hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So healthcare here is so much cheaper than in the US. Here, you can get a Cadillac top-notch premium private healthcare plan for a 100 euros a month. Some
Wow.
of it depends on age. I'm 60. So the older you are, the more that might be. So if you came over here and you were able to retire at 50 or 52 or 55, it's probably less. But I'm 60, so mine is 100 a month, which
Wow.
is
Phenomenal.
totally affordable.
Yeah.
And here's the bonus. So I had a shoulder surgery, a rotator cuff repair before I came. And I'm doing my physical therapy here. I came and I said, I need physical therapy here. I'm paying $1.35 a session with my insurance plan here out of pocket.
Wow.
$1.35 with unlimited sessions. There's no like, no, you can only have 20 sessions. I mean, here it's so much easier.
Yeah.
My friend came to visit me. She doesn't have any insurance. She needed dental work. We just went to the dentist, and it was completely affordable for her to get dental care here with no insurance.
Wow. That's
So
that's
healthcare is
fantastic.
one of the biggest pluses to living here. It
Well,
is.
everything that you shared sounds like, I mean, that's everything that we covered. And based on, even the figures you gave, um, I mean, you can still do Portugal, right at a thousand, maybe even a little less per month. That's with groceries and, if you don't have a car, if you're doing the transportation, you get that
Yep.
$20 euro.
I would say yes, you can. You can definitely do it if you don't live in the city.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you move, even within the city, okay, the closer you are to the water, the higher the rents are going to be. So
Sure.
even if you just live inland, yes, the rents go down.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to move outside of the city, and many of the places in Portugal, like the smaller towns that aren't like you're the only person who lives there, but it's a small town, have great bus systems or a train that will get you to the bigger city.
Sure.
You could probably live here on 1,000 a month, or a little less, but I would say now it's probably more along the lines of 1,500. I would say a a monthly social security check could get you by here, like a full one where you've worked your whole life and
Sure. Yeah.
you're getting the full amount. And there are people who move here on just their social security.
Yeah.
And it's doable, but you might have to forego, some amenities, or you have to budget better. So,
Sure. Sure. Well, Jules de Mello, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so
Portuguese
much.
last name.
Yeah, thank you
I
so
have to
much.
explore my roots, I got to get back to my roots.
You do. Well, pleasure to meet you, and thanks so much for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.